Hi, welcome to the Help for Helpers workshop. This is a program for caregivers, healers, helpers, parents, educators, other caregivers who are dealing with chronic and toxic stress. The idea is to give people who are stressed out, trying to care for others, and who are working in the healing professions and helping professions in various capacities get some relief for the pressure that many of us have been under for quite a long time. This is a workshop that is sponsored by the Family Connection, Southern Oregon's parenting hub. And this is the third iteration of the workshop that's been offered. I'm creating this recording to present to the public and future Family Connection parents and other participants so that this material is available for people who need it. This is being recorded on May 15th, and I'm hoping that this will be helpful. So my name is David Smith. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a mental health therapist in private practice in Southern Oregon. I'm physically located in Grants Pass. My practice, Thriving Family Therapy, runs, I see clients in 5 states, Oregon, Idaho, Florida, Kansas, and Vermont. And we'll soon be adding 3 more, I hope, California, Indiana, and New Mexico. The reason for that widespread is that I specialize in working with families and individuals who are neurodivergent, autism, ADHD, sorry, that's my dog, he's with me. Autism, ADHD, other forms of neurodivergence, and their family members and partners and other significant people in their lives. I also specialize a great deal in childhood trauma, complex trauma, and very complicated childhood histories for adults and children and families. And then I also work a lot with healers, helpers, teachers, other therapists who are dealing with stress and burnout. So those are kind of the 3 areas that I focus on, and there's a lot of overlap between them. A lot of the symptoms are very similar when you're dealing with people who are on the autism spectrum, for example, people who have complex PTSD, people who are experiencing burnout and chronic stress. A lot of the struggles that they have are very similar. The reasons are different. The roots of those things can be very different, but there's a lot of overlap. That's why I do what I do, and why I do most of my work via telehealth across such a wide area. So I'm grateful to have such a thriving practice. I've been teaching classes for the Family Connection on issues like parenting, co-parenting for blended and separating or divorced families, parenting issues for people who have children who are neurodivergent, and other specialized topics for about 4 years. Started during COVID, and it's a public service that I believe in deeply, helping people who work with children and families know better how to handle situations that come up and feel more calm, competent, and able to handle things is really important to me. I'm a parent myself. I have 3 children who are now 19, 17, and 14, all boys, even the dog is a boy, poor wife. And I've gone through a lot of these struggles myself. So I get it from a personal level. I also have worked with several hundred people over the years. I was formerly a school-based therapist, first with Options and then with La Clinica in Josephine and Jackson counties in Oregon. And I've worked at several elementary schools around the valley, and then went into private practice about a year ago. So that's my background. This course came about in a conversation with the Family Connection staff, Bethany and Diana, about a year and a half ago, due to what I was observing toward the end of my time as a school-based therapist, where teachers, families, educators, healers, and helpers like me, the nurses and other medical people I worked with at the Clinica clinic in the elementary school that I was staffed in, and a lot of other people were just struggling with an overwhelming amount of stress. And as was I. I was going through some really severe burnout, which led me to ultimately leave the school-based therapy profession and go into private practice myself. So I felt like this was an important topic that deserves some help. So we offered this the first time in April of 2023, and then again in November. And this is probably the final time that I'll be doing this course for the Family Connection, although I'll continue to offer it in other settings in the future, just because I love the work that they do, and will continue to support them. But I think the material has kind of become something that is routine, and I want to move on to other things that I can teach. So thus this recording. So this is available for people in the future who would benefit from it, and so that the Family Connection has a resource that they can offer to people who are struggling, because this is an important topic. So let me bring up my slides. I will try to speak slowly. When I am in professor mode, as my wife likes to call it, I sometimes can talk very fast. So I'll try to keep it slow. The slides in this presentation are also available as a handout. You can contact me if you would like to get copies, and I will try to keep them available through the Family Connection. My email address will be on the first slide, which I will bring up in a moment. So I can get that to work. Let me go into presentation view, slideshow, play from start. You would think that I would have this down after several years on Zoom, but still working on it. So as I said, my name is David Smith. My email address is there, david@thrivingfamilytherapy.com. The website is www.thrivingfamilytherapy.com. And you can see my information there. So I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm also a certified clinical trauma professional, certified family trauma professional, and a certified autism spectrum disorder clinical specialist. That's what that alphabet soup after my name means. So I take this work pretty seriously. So let's talk a little bit about stress. Something that we're all familiar with, but and we throw the word around a lot. But what is it actually, and what purpose does it serve? It actually does have a purpose. So stress. Let's look at the Cleveland Clinic's definition of this. They're one of the most prominent medical clinics in the country after Mayo Clinic, right up there in quality. And their definition is one that I like. They say that stress is a normal human reaction that happens to everyone. In fact, the human body is designed to experience stress and react to it. When you experience changes or challenges, otherwise known as stressors, your body produces physical and mental responses. That's stress. Stress responses help your body adjust to new situations. Stress can be positive, keeping us alert, motivated, and ready to avoid danger. For example, if you have an important test coming up, a stress response might help your body work harder and stay awake longer. I would also add that it helps you focus. It puts your attention in a very narrow channel so that you can pay attention to the study materials or the test itself, and your performance is escalated. Your brain goes into hyperfocus mode, and it's designed to click quickly around the issue that you're focused on and stressed about. They continue, but stress becomes a problem when stressors continue without relief or periods of relaxation. The body's autonomic nervous system controls your heart rate, breathing, vision changes, and more. Its built-in stress response, the fight or flight response, helps the body face stressful situations. When a person has long-term chronic stress, continued activation of the stress response causes wear and tear on the body. Physical, emotional, and behavioral symptoms develop. If you want to read the rest of the article, the link is there. So that's their definition. Some common causes of stress. The big ones are death of a loved one, divorce, loss of a job. Moving is right up there, surprisingly. I can testify, having done this about 30 times in my life, that moving is an incredible stress. Other things can be financial pressures, getting married or having a baby. We think about these as some of the most positive experiences in our life, but they are also incredibly stressful. They create great change, which is stress. Chronic illness or injury can be, as we know, for those who have suffered from it, can be incredibly stressful on many levels: mental, emotional, physical, social, financial. Emotional problems such as depression, anxiety, anger, grief, guilt, low self-esteem, all those put us under a lot of stress. Taking care of a family member, children, parents, for those who are in the sandwich generation like me, where we are at least partially responsible for taking care of both parents and children. That's an especially difficult situation. I'm grateful that my parents are still in relatively good shape, and I'm not having to actively care for them every day, but worrying about them and trying to help them out as best I can is a source of stress sometimes. Traumatic events, obviously, that's big S stress. Stress to an extreme becomes trauma when it's not resolved and we don't have enough support. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then there's work stress, which is a whole category in itself. Those factors can include things like toxic work environments, heavy workloads, being unhappy in your job, lack of support, job insecurity, which is a big deal these days with a lot of layoffs and difficulty finding work, and a lot of other factors. So job stress is a big one for many of us. That includes job stress when you are a stay-at-home parent. That job is one of the hardest in the world, and can include all those elements. Toxic work environments, if your family is unhappy, if you're in an abusive situation, if you feel unsupported, that is a toxic work environment at home. Sometimes children can be violent or abusive, especially when you're dealing with kids who are dealing with a lot of trauma or are neurodivergent. They can behave in ways that we experience as extremely stressful and even emotionally or physically abusive. Being unhappy at home, being unhappy in your role, feeling unsupported, feeling insecure in your relationship. So a lot of this stuff about work stress translates very well, all too well, into the job of being a stay-at-home parent. As the person who was the stay-at-home parent in my family with my children for about 12 years, I can testify to this firsthand. It can be very difficult and very stressful at times. So, why are helpers so stressed out now? I love this cartoon. It's a very old one, as you could probably tell, but it still applies. And in the post-COVID world, and even during COVID, it was a crazy, crazy time. I know a lot of teachers, I've worked closely with them. Many of them will relate to this particular cartoon quite well. So, what's going on? In the helping professions, a lot these days. So as of 2022, Gallup reported that teachers have among the highest rates of burnout of all professions at 44%. This is old data, a couple years old now. It's probably still pretty relevant. I know a lot of teachers who are leaving the profession early, taking retirement, downshifting, going part-time, going into other professions. Many of them are just burned out and trying to make their way toward retirement as best they can, trying to limp across the finish line. New ones seem to be a little better equipped. They got more training in mental health and other issues in their graduate programs than people 20 or 25 years ago did, but still, it's an incredibly difficult job. 55% of teachers report they are planning to leave the profession earlier than anticipated, according to the National Education Association. And more than 1/3 say they're likely or very likely to quit within the next 2 years. This is as of 2023. More than half of teachers report their own mental health is worse in 2023 than previously, and 42% of teaching has suffered as a result. So this is a big deal, especially if you are a parent with children still in the schools. Those teachers are struggling and they're having a hard time, and they will be the first to admit that their teaching is not what it should be because of the stress that they're under and the emotional toll that it's taking on them, and sometimes the physical toll as well. We'll get to that in a little while. Healthcare workers also, at all levels, are facing burnout. This is according to the Journal of Internal Medicine in 2023. 56% of nurses are define themselves as being in a state of burnout or close to it, and 41% are intending to quit within 2 years. This is not meaning quit their job. This means quit nursing, not doing nursing at all anymore. 47% of doctors also report burnout. 24% of doctors are intending to leave the profession entirely within 2 years. This is scary. I don't know about you, but I've tried to access healthcare a lot over the past several years, and it's getting harder and harder. My wife just tried to find a PCP for the first time in several years, and she was put on a 7-month wait list for an appointment at the local community mental health or community health clinic, which is supposed to accept people regardless of ability to pay and get them an appointment quickly. It's just shocking how difficult it is to find healthcare these days. The U.S. Surgeon General recognized that, and declared healthcare workforce burnout a national crisis 2 years ago. The recommendations that the Surgeon General came up with to address that were band-aids at best on an amputation, but they did recognize the crisis. And parents are worried more than ever about their children's mental health. 40% of mothers and 34% of fathers say that parenting is stressful most or all of the time. This is according to a Pew Research poll 2 years ago. I would not say that it's gotten a whole lot better. That said, that was immediately after COVID, so it was a pretty wild and chaotic time. So what's going on? Why is it so hard? So some of it is likely the long-term impacts of the COVID pandemic on children, families, communities, and the professionals who help them at every level, as well as the COVID pandemic's direct impact on teachers, healthcare workers, frontline workers of all kinds, which we're still working out. Just because the government declares the crisis over does not mean that the impacts stop happening. They go on for quite a long time, years. So there are also chronic workforce shortages in education, healthcare, childcare, and other systems of care. I don't know if you've tried to find a daycare center that will accept your kids these days. It's very, very hard. And those people are under a lot of stress and are vastly underpaid given what they do. These shortfalls were in place before the pandemic, and they've only gotten much more acute since then. We lost a lot of people to retirement and changing professions during the pandemic. A lot of people just burned out hard and left. Our educational institutions and training programs in those fields are not able to keep up. They can't lower their standards because they want to produce quality people, and they are not set up to surge a large number of people through the system in a hurry to replace shortfalls like we have now. Medical programs simply cannot expand very quickly. Same with mental health training, same with teacher training. They simply cannot produce more people, even if those people were there to take up the shortfall. And they are not. There are not enough people entering the profession. And above all, there's a buildup of chronic toxic stress that has been taking place over years and was only made more acute during COVID, which led to things like burnout, moral injury, compassion fatigue, and traumatic stress syndromes among people who are in the front lines, including parents and other caregivers. So what does chronic stress do to people? It's a big deal. Some people would say that it's one of the underlying factors behind most illness, mental, emotional, physical. Some of the physical symptoms can include things like aches and pains, chest pain, or feeling like your heart is racing, elevated blood pressure, and chronic blood pressure problems is one of the symptoms that I developed during the COVID era and immediately afterward. One of the reasons that I went into private practice was taking a toll on my body, causing heart problems. Exhaustion or trouble sleeping. Again, I can attest to this one. Even if you do get enough hours of sleep, often the quality of that sleep is very poor when you're under a lot of stress. My own personal theory is that it's like you're sleeping in a place which you know to be dangerous. A part of your brain is still awake even when you're asleep, listening for signs that there's something coming. When you're under stress, you're in a fight-flight response a lot of the time. And so your brain does not fully relax even when your body is exhausted and you go to sleep. So we wake up not a whole lot more rested than we were when we fell asleep. Headaches, dizziness, or shaking are pretty common. That adrenaline or epinephrine can cause a lot of trembling. So people, when they're under chronic stress, develop tremors, other things, and chronic tension headaches. High blood pressure we talked about, muscle tension, jaw clenching. It can almost feel like lockjaw. Your muscles are grinding your teeth at night, and you wake up with your jaw kind of locked and this incredible tension in your jaw and neck. Stomach and digestive problems are really common. Trouble having sex, dysregulation in the reproductive system is also really common, low libido, and a weak immune system. So what's happening there is that our stress response system, when you're in fight-flight mode, or freeze or fawn, or the other forms that the limbic system can take us into, is designed to help us escape from danger, immediate life-threatening danger. And so it shuts down all non-essential systems to get those things out of the way and reduce their energy consumption so that the energy can be redirected toward more essential things like our extremities getting muscle into our hands, legs, arms, feet. It's directing energy to certain areas of the brain that are involved in stress response and getting out of danger, shutting down others. If you think about it, being able to reproduce, digest your last meal, fight off a long-term illness or a virus, those things are not essential when you're trying to escape a predator or a flood. You don't need that stuff. You need it when the danger is past. And so our stress response is designed to shut down those non-essential systems until we're out of danger, which evolutionarily speaking takes about 15 to 20 minutes. If you're not out of danger by then, you're probably dead, and it's irrelevant. In modern day life, we are under chronic stress a lot of the time. And so that's why these systems that get shut down temporarily and are meant to get back online shortly remain dysregulated for long periods of time when we're under chronic stress for long periods, which is getting to be more and more the norm in modern society. Some of the other symptoms, especially the emotional and mental ones, are things like anxiety or irritability, depression, panic attacks, chronic sadness. Another word for that is anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure or joy. Often people with chronic stress try to manage it with unhealthy behaviors, including drinking alcohol too much or too often, gambling, overeating, or disordered eating, participating compulsively in sex shopping or internet browsing, doom scrolling, or binge watching TV shows until long into the night, smoking, other things, drug use. These are, we tend to judge them pretty harshly, a lot of these behaviors, but they're adaptive for someone who is under a lot of stress. They distract us. They shut down the part of the brain that is freaking out, and they help us to calm down for a short period of time. Of course, in the long term, those things are very damaging, and they make it all worse. But they help us escape from the stress in the moment. So they make sense, given what's going on. So one of the things that we can think about is that one of the responses to stress in the body is inflammation. There's 100 or so chemicals that are released by our endocrine system when we're under stress, and many of those cause chronic inflammation. I'm not enough of a neurologist or certainly not a medical person to know exactly what the mechanism is that causes that. But inflammation is at the root of a lot of the issues that we have, from blood pressure issues to heart disease to autoimmune diseases to there are theories that link inflammation in the brain to depression. So the inflammation that comes from stress is one of the underlying factors in many of these things, including both physical and emotional health issues. So what is toxic stress? You may have heard this term thrown around. As we mentioned, stress is something that can be good. A certain amount of stress is necessary for learning. If you're not a little bit stressed out as you're taking a test, you're probably not going to perform very well. We need that adrenaline to help us focus. I don't know if you've ever experienced procrastination, but I'm someone who for long periods of my life would put off doing things until the very last minute because I needed that shot of stress to be able to focus and perform at my best. So I learned to sort of titrate my stress levels by putting things off until just before they were due. Of course, beyond a certain point, that starts to backfire and starts to shut you down. But stress can be helpful in certain doses. Athletes and other people who try to be at peak performance know this, and they know that if they're not stressing out their muscles and their body to a certain degree, they're not going to improve. They're not going to get stronger, faster, or better. So a certain dose of stress is essential for growth and learning. But when it goes on for more than those short periods of time that our bodies are designed for, it becomes neurotoxic. Brain cells and nerve cells literally die. And there are many other damaging effects that those chemicals have on the body. When we're flooded with cortisol and the other chemicals that stress produces, it has long-term effects on our digestive system. It becomes really dysregulated. Think about it as like you're pressing on the accelerator and the brake pedal off and on in this really bumpy, weird pattern. Freaks out our bowels and bad things happen. So Crohn's disease, irritable bowel syndrome, lots of other bowel issues tend to be common when you're under a lot of stress. Or you just don't digest things well. It's racing through your body so fast or getting stuck there for so long that you are not getting healthy nutrition. And we store fat in areas that we don't need it. The immune system gets dysregulated. So one of two things can happen. Either you start to get sick with pretty much anything that goes around because your immune system is suppressed, or your immune system starts trying to detect danger everywhere because it's getting this threat signal, and it starts attacking healthy tissue, which is where we start getting things like allergies and autoimmune problems, rheumatoid arthritis. A lot of things can be linked to chronic stress for long periods of time. The cardiovascular system starts to get dysregulated when your heart is trying to pump fast to get all that blood and oxygen into your extremities for long periods of time and into certain parts of your brain. The heart just gets stressed out, and your veins and arteries also have an impact. They're impacted by that. The brain and the nervous system are impacted. Brain cells die, and certain parts of your brain start getting overactivated and wired together in ways that become really rigid. Other parts of your brain start to atrophy because they're not being used. They're shut down for too long. And we wire for a system that is incredibly stressful. So toxic stress refers to a lasting serious stress response without adequate support, in which the stress response can't turn off normally to allow the body to rest and recover. So even after those 15 or 20 minutes, when ideally we get out of the immediate stress response, the chemicals are still in our body for anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. That's how long it takes to metabolize some of these things. So if you get out of a stressful situation, you get a good night's sleep, your brain is probably not so stressed if you're able to relax. Your body is still feeling it though. And so if you go back into another stressful situation, so you go back to work the next day, you then are subjecting yourself to that same dose of chemicals that are still flooding your body from the day before. And so your body has not had a chance to recover. We need time to reset. We're not designed to be going into these stressful situations over and over, day after day. And modern life in Western societies in particular, and more, this is worldwide because a lot of other societies are starting to emulate the way that things work in the US, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Japan. And it's spreading. We are under near constant stress, and that includes our young children. It's become a pandemic, for lack of a better word. Gabor one of the best psychiatrists in the world and a major theorist around trauma and addiction, wrote a book recently called The Myth of Normal, which identifies our lifestyle as traumatogenic, meaning it creates trauma, just the nature of our modern day life and the way that we're trying to live it. It's the root of our society that is the problem. It's not the trauma itself, it's the way that we live that is causing this pandemic of trauma and stress. An interesting theory. So what is burnout? This is basically where stress will take us if we don't get to a place where we get some relief. I experienced my first period of burnout when I was about 20 years old in my sophomore year in college and wound up having to take a year off. I was at Harvard. It was an incredibly difficult place. I found it very intellectually stimulating, as you can imagine, but also absolutely soul-crushing with the stress that I was under. And it just burned me right out. And I've experienced this over and over again through my life at different periods. There's a certain amount of stress that your body can take, and then if you don't give it some relief, eventually it will say, listen, I need you to pay attention. It will force you to get the rest that you did not take. So that's burnout. The American Psychological Association defines burnout as physical, emotional, or mental exhaustion accompanied by decreased motivation, lower performance, and negative attitudes towards oneself and others. Pretty much encapsulates it. So what are the signs? These are things to watch for. If you're one of those helpers and healers who is in a state of chronic stress, these are the signals to pay attention to. Chronic fatigue, You're just tired all the time, no matter how much rest you get, no matter how many weekends you take off, no matter how much you veg out under the covers on Saturday, trying to get over your week. You just cannot get to the place where you feel rested. You're just tired all the time. Apathy, dissatisfaction, loss of interest. You just don't have any more whatever to give. I don't know where this is going to go or who's going to watch it, so I'm going to be careful with my language. You just don't care anymore. It's really hard to get up your energy. This is compassion fatigue, and that we talk about in the healing and helping professions. Nurses, doctors, therapists. We are trained to watch for this. When you are starting to feel like you just don't care about your patients or clients anymore, that's a sign that you're headed toward burnout, and it's a danger signal that we're trained to watch for. Can we actually do anything about it? Not always. Frequent headaches, especially tension headaches. Changes to diet and sleep. You're either eating like mad, even when you're not hungry, just trying to get the sugars and carbohydrates and caffeine and other sort of immediate dopamine hits into your system so you can keep going, or you just lose all appetite altogether, or you go back and forth. That's really normal. Again, your digestive system is really out of whack. And eating is something that is not essential when you're in a state of fight-flight. Changes to sleep. Really struggling to fall asleep, waking up in the middle of the night and not being able to get back to sleep. My pattern was waking up, and still sometimes is, waking up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and having to go to the bathroom, and then all the things that I'm thinking about or having to deal with the day before or the coming morning come crashing in when I'm really vulnerable, and I just cannot get back to sleep without some help. Or people sleep for really long periods of time. Hypersomnia and insomnia are two sides of the same coin. So you just go to bed and you cannot get enough rest. Your body's just shut down. The doggy is swallowing my kid's eating dinner. Depression, panic attacks, high anxiety, those things are pretty normal. You just are really struggling to live in the moment. So you can think of depression as being stuck in the past with regret, guilt, and a lot of struggles to deal with what has happened. And anxiety is the flip side. You're worried about the future, and you simply cannot be in the moment. Panic attacks are extreme anxiety. It's just gotten out of control, and you just can't handle it anymore. It feels like a heart attack. In fact, one of the most common ER admissions reasons is panic attack. It's often mistaken for heart attack, and doctors will tell you, if you feel like you're having a heart attack and you don't know whether it's a panic attack or a heart attack, go to the ER anyway, because either one feels like you're going to die. So panic attacks are real, and they're really problematic. I often get to the level just below a panic attack, and it lasts for a long time, and that's really painful. For people who are neurodivergent, on the autism spectrum in particular, there's a form of burnout that is not talked about much in the professional literature, but anyone who is autistic can identify it. It's called autistic burnout. And dog is bored. Autistic burnout is a sort of an amplified version of what a neurotypical person might experience as burnout. When you're autistic, burnout can include some additional features, which are really painful to deal with. Increased sensory sensitivity. Things that normally you could handle become excruciating. Noise, light, sensations on your skin, food, textures, whatever you're sensitive to that you could normally deal with becomes absolutely intolerable. It's like someone turned up the volume knob to a level that you just can't handle anymore. More frequent meltdowns and shutdowns. Your system is just so stressed out that you're just incredibly triggered a lot of the time. It's like an electrical circuit that is constantly tripping its breaker or going into an electrical fire. Your bandwidth is just so narrow that you either melt down or shut down, one or the other, and we'll look at that in a minute. Loss of skills that you normally would have. You just can't think straight. You can't plan. Your executive functioning, which is up here, is really impaired because that executive functioning up here is intended to go offline when you're in fight-flight mode. It's in the way. You can't afford to be thinking about things that are complicated, like planning and balancing your checkbook and learning higher math when you're running from a bear. It's not essential. So that part is taken offline. Your executive functioning is gone. Memory, really impaired. Short term, sometimes long term. Your short term memory tends to go first. Uh, you know, there's a joke about the senior GPS, which will not only tell you where you are, but why you were going there in the first place. This is really familiar to people who are in a state of autistic burnout. Just cannot remember what you were doing or what you had planned to do. Communication skills go to crap. You just can't get a sentence out. And it's really difficult to tell people what you're feeling, which is incredibly frustrating when you're trying to ask for help and tell people what's going on, especially people you work with or people in your family. You just can't get the words out because, again, that language center is up here, it's offline. Coping skills, things you could normally remember how to deal with, you can't do anymore because the part of the brain remembers what to do is up here. When you need it most, those coping skills are least accessible. That's very normal. And then just your ability to do daily tasks. You cannot handle the laundry. You can't handle doing the dishes. Even making your bed becomes excruciating to think about. You just shut down. And then increased sort of quote unquote autistic behaviors, things that people who are on the spectrum do to try to regulate their sense of safety and feeling calm in their bodies. Stimming, handshaking, or doing things with their hands, spinning, things that people do to regulate themselves become much more prominent because they need it more. They're trying to off-gas some of that stress. And people who struggle with speech difficulties, like stuttering, you can hear that I have a little bit of it. I believe that I'm partly neurodivergent also, probably on the spectrum, although I've never been diagnosed yet. Those things become much more noticeable. So that's pretty normal for people who are in a state of autistic burnout. And that can last anywhere from hours to days to weeks, even years, depending on how able the individual is to regulate their stress, get support, get to a place where they feel safe and calm in their bodies again, and get the help that they need. It's really variable. So, what can we do about it? One aspect, we'll get into more detail about this in a minute, but one thing that we can do is just to understand what's happening, where it comes from, and honor that, respect it, have compassion for it in ourselves, in our families, in our coworkers, in our environment. Know that stress is a big deal, and it really does impact people. One second, I'm gonna let my dog out. So stick him on the kids, see what he does. So honor what's going on and really respect the impact that stress has. Don't take it lightly. Well, you're just under stress. There's no just about it. Stress is one of the most damaging things that we can experience when it goes on long enough. We can also work on increasing our window of tolerance for stress. I'll explain that in a couple slides. We can make ourselves more resilient to stress. We do this by improving our coping strategies, just having a bigger toolkit for basically dumping stress or finding ways to manage it better or building more support, and increasing our healthy relationships, having people around us who help support us and help us feel calm and seen and heard and safe. We can create calmer, healthier environments for ourselves at home, at work, in the community. Our environment has a huge impact on how we feel and how we experience our day. We can build a greater sense of meaning and purpose into our lives. Most of us can tolerate a lot when we feel that it matters. Parents and caregivers are willing to sacrifice a great deal for them for the sake of their children. People who believe that the work that they're doing is important in the world and is making a difference can push through a lot in order to make that purpose come real when we believe that what we're doing matters. And then above all, we can get help when we need it. And we'll talk about where to get some of that help later on. So what is the window of tolerance? This is a concept that I have found really useful. This particular slide comes from a site called Neurodivergent Insights by Dr. Neff, who is a clinical psychologist who specializes in working with people who are neurodivergent, on the autism spectrum in particular, and has some brilliant material on her website. The window of tolerance is, this concept is not unique to her. It's fairly widely known, but I like the way that she has framed it. So the window of tolerance is basically the optimal zone where we are in a place where we're able to regulate the amount of stress that we're under. We're able to deal with stress effectively. And everyone has a unique window of tolerance. That's partly a function of genetics, it's partly a function of personality, it's partly influenced by our personal habits, diet, nutrition, exercise, how we cope with things, our mindset, how we process information, how we perceive things as either stressful or not stressful. That can have a big impact. Whether we are prone to see things as dangerous or feel threatened by things that are novel and new, all those things have an impact. And our window of tolerance is not only unique to us as individuals, it varies day by day. So think about how you feel when you've gotten a good night's sleep, you've eaten a good breakfast, you have just come off of a long weekend, when you had a good time with your family, your partner gave you a nice kiss goodbye as you left for the office, you maybe walk to work, it's a beautiful day, it's sunny, you feel like you're in a good mood, and you're listening to happy music. Versus, you're coming off of a weekend when you had to help your parents move, for example, or you didn't get much sleep, or you had a lot of conflict with the people who are important to you in your life. You had to skip breakfast because you overslept or didn't get a good night's sleep at all. You're coming off of an illness, and you're facing a major task at work that you are dreading and don't feel supported in. Those 2 days are going to look very different. Same person, but you've got a very different window of tolerance for stress on those 2 different days. Things that you could handle perfectly well on a day when you're calm, collected, and rested will be really difficult to handle on a day when you are just off. So when you're outside your window of tolerance at that given moment, you go into one of 2 states, depending on how you're wired and the way that you're seeing the situation that you're in. One is the fight-flight response, which is where we are emotionally reactive, just irritable, easily triggered. Everything gets under our skin. We can go into panic. We can go into rages or meltdowns. You're in a state of hypervigilance. Note that there's a spelling error there, where you're just on the alert for danger everywhere. And the autism community, sometimes this is labeled as meerkat mode, where you're just watching around for danger all the time. You can't find it. You're just going into this loop of looking for the predator that you can't spot. And you feel stressed. This is hyper-arousal. So your fight-flight system is activated and you are ready to fight or run. The other extreme is hypo-arousal. So this is when we go into the freeze response or possibly the fawn response, or the feign response, another one, where we're basically faking dead. You're shut down. This is what we're designed to do when we can't escape a predator, we can't fight it off, and we're basically trying to play possum and wait for the danger to go away and hope that we survive. So we are shut down, we're numb, we're detached. People talk about floating on the ceiling, watching what's happening, and like it's happening to someone else, or they're watching a movie. This is daydreaming at the most benign level. We all do this when our brain needs a rest. We go into a daydream, we check out, we check our phone, we come back to what we're doing. At the extremes, we feel shut down and dissociated. We're not in our bodies. We're somewhere else. And we are like we're living from the neck up and our body's just going on autopilot. This can last for a long period of time, and some people live in that state for much of their lives. Or they can go back and forth between hyper and hypo-arousal, go from meltdown to shutdown in an instant. Especially people who have a lot of trauma, who are neurodivergent, who have ADHD. Some people just are varying between one extreme or the other all the time because their window of tolerance is very narrow. So this kind of illustrates that concept. If you'll notice, these 2 curves are exactly the same. Color is different, but the curve is the same. What's different is the window of tolerance. So the left one shows a very narrow window of tolerance. This is common with someone who's under chronic stress, not getting enough sleep, just dealing with a lot. It's also very common for people who have been through complex trauma, who are in a state of acute trauma in the moment. Something really terrible just happened, and they're still dealing with it. Or people who are neurodivergent. Sometimes people who are on the autism spectrum have ADHD, their brains are just wired differently. It's very common for people like that to be fairly emotionally fragile and easily triggered by things that someone who is neurotypical might not find so difficult to deal with. That's very common in people who are neurodivergent. So what can we do? We can increase our window of tolerance over time so that we're more resilient and resourceful under stress. That's the idea, and that's the basis of a lot of the work that I do as a therapist, working with people who are neurodivergent, have complex trauma, or are burning out, helping professionals who are dealing with chronic toxic stress, or parents for that matter, who I consider the original helpers and healers, and probably the best ones in the lives of their children. So what can you do to increase your window of tolerance? This is the important part of this presentation. So far, this has been background to kind of help explain what's going on, but this is what is so important about and why I tried to create this material in the first place, to talk about what we can actually do, because so much of the material is out there, including from the Surgeon General, is Band-Aid stuff. Just talk to your coworkers, go for more walks, have some mindfulness stuff that you do at lunchtime, reach out for help, tell your employee access program what's happening and get a couple of sessions, talk to a therapist, talk to friends and family. You know, those are all respectable, important things to do, but when you're dealing with an amputation, a Band-Aid is not the right answer. When you're in a state of burnout, especially when it's autistic burnout, compounding the thing, those solutions are not enough. So we need more. So this is a pretty comprehensive list of things that you can do. Some blend of all of it that fits you individually is probably the best answer, and it's very personal. But these are some ideas to try. So the elements that we'll cover are sleep, nutrition and diet, exercise and movement, sensory strategies, mindfulness practice, including meditation, rhythms, rituals, and routines. Those may not seem very obvious, but they are really important, especially when you are working with children, but also for adults. Social connection, having a calm environment, spiritual practice and meaning making in your life, and lastly, reaching out for help, knowing when to call uncle and call on a professional. So let's get into some detail about that. Let's take a sip of water to reduce my own stress. Drinking a lot of water is one of the best things you can do, by the way. I think the professionals recommend at least 6 to 8 of those glasses that I'm drinking from a day. I tend to drink a lot more than that, and it helps to flush out my system. Yeah, you can drink too much water, but it's hard. Sleep. So I consider sleep the foundation of everything. Sleep is when it's designed to help do a couple things. One is obviously rest, but what's happening when you're resting? Your body is rebuilding damaged material at the cellular level and everything up from there. It's cleaning out damaged cells, it's removing toxins from the body, it's processing all the stuff that came in. The brain is getting rid of a lot of the chemicals, neurotransmitter waste and stress chemicals that have flooded it during the day, so that it can flush all that out of the system and start with a healthy balance of neurotransmitters and the other materials in the brain the next day. It's also, sleep is when we process all of the material that came up emotionally and in thoughts and memories during the day and sort them. Think about the movie Inside Out. It's actually incredibly accurate psychologically. For a Pixar movie, I learned just a month ago that they consulted with Dick Schwartz, who is a major theorist in psychology, to make sure that their movie was as accurate as it could possibly be, which is why from the standpoint of a therapist, with an interest in neuroscience, it was shockingly accurate in what it portrayed. Our brain is doing all the stuff that is portrayed in that movie when we're sleeping. And when we're not getting good sleep or we're under a lot of stress, a lot of the things that movie shows are actually happening. Memories get lost, or they get twisted and polluted by sadness and depression and other things. We start losing important memories. All kinds of bad things happen. There's a reason why the Geneva Convention banned sleep deprivation as a form of torture 100 years ago. So, if we don't get good sleep, everything else falls apart. What can you do about it? So the Mayo Clinic is my source for this. There are others. The Seattle Children's Hospital has a great handout on sleep hygiene for children, for example. But the basics are stick to a schedule. I know it's tempting to stay up late on the weekends and sleep in, but that actually is really bad for you in the long run. Try to keep to a routine because we are creatures of habit. We're wired that way. Our body doesn't know anything about weekends. All it knows is that you're off schedule and it messes it up. Our circadian rhythms are designed to be consistent for a season. They change over the course of a year. But we're designed for an equatorial climate to have a regular, fairly regular 24-hour cycle that doesn't vary a lot from one season to the other, which is why so many of us get seasonal depression, I think, this is a theory, when we live in these high latitude climates. So stick to a schedule. Those of you who are parents may notice when your kids are off their sleep schedule, bad things tend to happen. That happens with adults too. We're just a little more suave at covering up for it. Watch what you eat and drink. So heavy meals within a couple hours before bedtime are a bad idea. Late night snacks, bad idea. My personal habit of ice cream before bedtime, super bad idea, because sugar is one of the worst things that you can inject into your brain. And fat is one of the worst things you can inject into your digestive system just before you go to bed. Your body and your brain are sitting there trying to figure out what to do with that when they're supposed to be sleeping. Nicotine, caffeine, alcohol. Again, a lot of us use those things to regulate stress during the day or to deal with difficult emotions, but within 2 hours of bedtime, all of those will mess up your sleep. Yes, alcohol will help you get to sleep, but you'll spend the rest of the night trying to get it out of your system, and it will mess up your brain patterns in some really dramatic ways. So you will get to sleep, and then you'll probably wake up 3 or 4 hours later once the stuff is out of your system, and you're then dehydrated. Your body is in some degree of withdrawal, and your sleep is really disturbed. So try to get out of that habit if you can, if that's one of the things you fall into. Create a restful environment. So the experts say that keeping the room cool, dark, and quiet is the best way to help your sleep. And that also has the benefit of letting you add on some extra blankets. Weighted blankets are one way that we regulate the nervous system for people who are really sensitive, but just having a pile of blankets also helps to release oxytocin, the cuddle hormone, into the body, which is very calming and quieting. Avoid any screens before bed. This is bad news to those of you who like to binge watch YouTube. Sorry, kids. Or your favorite shows on Netflix, or just zone out on your social media before bed. Really bad idea. Even with the blue light filter on, or the thing in nighttime mode, that will solve part of the problem because blue light does dysregulate our brains. But the bigger problem is the flickering of the screen. It's depending on the actual device, it's flickering on and off and changing images between 60 to 120,000 times per second. Yes, our brain can assemble that into a meaningful image, but it's not designed to do that. And so it exhausts some parts of the brain and overstimulates others, and it really messes with our sleep. So the experts say turn off your screens, any screen other than a Kindle, which is a different technology, and it's more stable, it doesn't flicker like that. Turn them all off at least 45 minutes before you try to go to sleep. Preferably an hour or two before you do that. Read, talk, rest, meditate, something calming, listen to music, no screens. Yep, it's a problem for me too. Limit naps during the day to no more than an hour, and avoid napping late in the day. So, I've been a big fan of naps most of my life. I especially love when my children take naps, although that doesn't happen anymore because they're older, teenagers. But naps beyond about, the experts say 20 minutes is kind of the optimal time, but certainly no more than an hour. Then you're going into deeper sleep, and getting out of that is really disturbing. It also messes up your sleep rhythms. So keep them short and sweet. The idea of a quick brain reset where you're just kind of relaxing your brain for 20 to 30 minutes and then you're getting back to your day is probably the optimal way to do it. And do not do it after about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon because then you're starting to tell your body it's time for sleep and then it gets confused. Include some physical activity in the routine, but don't exercise too close to bedtime. So late at night is not the best time to go to the gym. Yes, it's convenient. Yes, it may be the only time that you can work it into your schedule, but it's going to mess up your sleep. So then a lot of us who deal with anxiety as one of the chronic problems have a lot of worries that tend to keep us awake late at night. So you can try to manage those by things like jotting them down in a journal, meditating. There's a sleep meditation by Louise Hay. Just look up Louise Hay sleep meditation, 45 minutes. It's a magical one for me. Your mileage may vary. But meditating can help a lot. You can organize your activities and daily tasks or delegate things to others so that those anxieties and worries are less prominent. And you are going to bed more prepared for the next day so that you're less likely to sit there and ruminate about them until your brain goes crazy. Or wake up in the middle of the night unable to get those worries out of your head, which is, as I mentioned, what happens to me a lot. So those are some ideas for things that you can do behaviorally to help out. These are some things that can help nutritionally. Let me back up a little bit. The other thing that Mayo Clinic does not mention is that if you are struggling with chronic sleep, whether it's insomnia or hypersomnia, when this is a problem on a regular basis for long periods of time and it's interfering with your functioning, it's making you depressed, it's making you irritable, it's making it impossible to be rested enough to function in your daily tasks. You're getting no more than 3 or 4 hours of sleep consistently, or maybe 5, depending on your needs. People vary. Or you're sleeping like 10, 12, 14 hours and you're still not feeling rested. That's time to talk to a professional. Even if it's only temporary, getting onto some form of sleep medication to reset and get you 3 or 4 days of good sleep can make all the difference in the world. So I know a lot of people are reluctant to take medication for sleep, and yes, some of them can be addictive. And others like Benadryl, that was my mom's habit for a long time, take Benadryl to help sleep. It will help a lot, but we're discovering now that it also has a lot of impacts on long-term memory and cognitive functioning, which are not good. So relying on those things over the long term is not a good idea. Short-term help is really wise if this has become a problem that's interfering with your daily functioning. And be aware that there are also medical things that can both be causing sleep problems and also can happen because of sleep problems. So like sleep apnea isn't just a snoring problem, it also reduces the oxygen levels in your brain, which can cause long-term issues with brain function. So if you're having sleep problems, do talk to a medical professional about it and get some help. Nutrition and diet. This is also another one of those foundations. And when you're under stress, all of this falls to crap. So, one of the first things that happens when we are stressed out is that we go naturally to simple carbohydrates, junk food, sugar, fat, things that make us feel good immediately in the moment. And the food corporations know this. It's why they load up the foods that they're selling in the packages in the center of the grocery store. Avoid that area if you can. The center of the grocery store is where all the bad stuff is. The exterior fringes, the vegetable section, the meat section, the organic foods, all the stuff that we tend to skip right over going to the crackers and cookies, those are the things we need. So one basic guideline is just shop around the edges of the grocery store. Don't go to the middle. But diet and nutrition tends to be one of those things that we fall to pieces on when we're under stress because our body is craving those feel-good things, those instant hits that give us a dopamine and adrenaline and serotonin rush immediately. Makes sense? The long-term impact is terrible. It's actually making our stress worse. So What do you want in your diet? Magnesium is one of the big ones, and it's one that we tend not to get enough of through our natural diet. So you can increase it in your dietary intake by eating a lot of leafy greens, spinach, chard, kale. The darker and more bitter it is, the more magnesium it tends to have in it, which is both kind of annoying and also a surefire way to find it. Legumes, these are things like things that we think of as beans but are not really beans. So like lentils, garbanzo beans, chickpeas, whatever you choose to call them. Pinto beans, black beans, things that are nuts or nut-like. Cashews, another one. Nuts and seeds, especially walnut, pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, things like that, are really rich in magnesium. Sunflower seeds are a great one. Just snacking on seeds all day can be a really great way to get that, nuts and seeds and granolas. Whole grains tend to have a fair amount of it, especially the more ancient grains that have not been so highly processed and adapted to our quick fix likes. Wheat is one of the worst. And we can absorb a lot more magnesium through the skin than we can through our digestive system. So digestive supplements for magnesium tend to make us queasy and cause digestive problems because it's pretty intense on our digestive system, but we absorb it really well through the skin. So Epsom salt baths are magnesium primarily. They can smell really good too, but magnesium is really good for not just the aches and pains, which is what our grandmothers tended to recommend them for. You feel sore, take an Epsom salt bath, or even just a foot soak with Epsom salts in it. But they're also really good for the brain. So magnesium is absorbed through the skin. It's an essential brain nutrient, especially for mood, and it's an essential feature in warding off depression and anxiety. So magnesium deficiency is one of the main issues that can underlie mood disorders. So trying to get magnesium into our bodies can really help, and it's also essential for sleep. So an Epsom salt bath before bed can not only be a really romantic way to prepare for bed or a very good form of self-care. I'm not too masculine to admit it. I enjoy that. But it also helps to put magnesium into our bodies in a way that we can absorb well, and it makes us sleep better and longer and more easily. Another good one to have in our diet for dealing with stress is zinc. Natural sources for that are oysters, cashews, liver, beef, egg yolks. You can also, we know that zinc is also very important for the immune system. So you can, if you look at Airborne or the other immune supplements, they tend to combine vitamin C and zinc. So you can take those. There's not a lot of harm in that. You'll just pee out whatever you don't need, as far as I know. I'm sure you can overdose on zinc if you really tried, but it would take some work. Omega-3s. So these are so important that in residential treatment centers for mental health, serious and persistent mental health issues, a lot of facilities give omega-3s to pretty much everyone that is in there because they're so essential as a brain nutrient for mood and brain function. Omega fatty acids are essential for nerve cell development and repair. So you can find those in nature through fatty wild fish, such as wild salmon, not the farmed kind. You gotta find wild salmon. Fish oil, cod liver oil. Yeah, it's horrible tasting. Our grandmothers would probably give it to us as a punishment more often than not, but it is really, really rich in omega-3s. And you can find it in supplements, some of which have the fishy taste taken out of it. I'm not sure what they use instead of the original cod liver oil or sardine oil or whatever it was that they used. But those little fish, sardines, and other ones are really rich in it. Also, the supplements can sometimes be found that take some of that fishy taste out of it. I don't know if you ever taken those supplements, but sometimes even the burps can smell fishy. It's really kind of embarrassing. You can find also omega-3, 6, and 9 supplements. The 6 and 9 have different purposes, but they're also really good for you. So an omega complex is a really good supplement to add into your diet. Be aware that eating too much wild fish can also expose you to other heavy metals that are not good for you because they're at the top of the food chain. So be aware of that. You can also get a lot of mercury and lead and other unhealthy heavy metals into your system, which are really hard to get rid of once they're in there. So be aware of what's in your food that you're eating, and eat it, not as a major staple in your diet, but as one of the features in it. So probiotics are essential. There's a lot of links between mental health and the gut biome. We're starting to think of the gut as a third brain, the second one being your heart, and that's almost like a third brain in itself. It functions in a different way. The digestive system is also essential, and our diet is not good at keeping those healthy bacteria, billions and billions of healthy bacteria that we need to be healthy in our diet. So you can take supplements for this. They vary in their effectiveness, and they do have to be refrigerated because those are live cultures. They're actually living beings in those little tablets or pills. But you can take supplements. You can also get a lot of good probiotics through things that are fermented, not beer, not wine. Sorry, guys, but sauerkraut, pickles, kefir, kimchi. Anything fermented. Those things are really rich in healthy bacteria. B vitamins are really essential, and that's for mood, it's for energy, it's for libido, it's for all kinds of things. Those are the building blocks of our bloodstream and our whole cardiovascular system, as well as a lot of brain function. So B vitamins are essential. Red meat is really rich in B12. Otherwise, there's a lot of health drawbacks, but you can get a really rich dose of B12 and other B vitamins in things like bison, for example, or other wild meats that are not as bad for you as your typical supermarket cows. You can also get them through avocados and almonds and other natural foods. I am kind of addicted to avocados. They're just an amazingly rich food. Complex carbohydrates, so not the more processed it is, the worse it is. You want the really nutty, grainy stuff that your kids will probably not touch. The types of crackers that are full of seeds and other whole grains are really good for you. The farther removed it is from the thing that grew on an actual plant, the worse it is for you. So like rice, you don't want white rice, you want the more whole grain brown rice, which I know tastes horrible to me too, but it's much better for you because the white rice basically removes all the outer parts of the grain of the rice seed, which is where all the good nutrients are, and all it retains is the glucose, the simple sugar and simple carbohydrates at the core, which is not good for you. Yes, it fills you up and it tastes better, but it's not good for you. Drink plenty of water. Take a drink of mine. Water is an essential flushing mechanism. Sorry, combine the two words there. It helps the kidneys, which are basically our septic system, our water filtration system. It helps the kidneys flush all those toxins out of our body. Helps the liver do the same thing, do its job better. It helps the bowels process food more smoothly. It helps to replenish the brain, which uses a lot of the water that we consume during the day, as well as a lot of the glucose in our body. The brain consumes about 25% of both. It's a small 3-pound organ, but it takes up a lot of our power. It needs water to function properly. So if you don't drink enough water, you are going to have misfiring in your brain. And avoid alcohol, caffeine, sugar, and soft drinks. Alcohol and caffeine they're diuretics. They will deplete your water supply as well as a lot of other things. Sugar is incredibly addictive. One of the most addictive substances we have. We are not designed to handle the amount of sugar that we are putting into our bodies. It's meant to be a rare thing in nature that is a special treat. It's not designed to be imbibed in the kind of purified, high-dose quantities and forms that we get it today. Soft drinks are terrible, including energy drinks. Those monster drinks, the other things, this area, Dutch Brothers now has their Rebel. Those things are awful for you. It's not just sugar, it's high doses of caffeine. They're the worst thing you could put into your body. Just quit it. Processed foods. Anything that is in a package especially one that's wrapped in plastic and contains stuff that is not recognizable as food and has stuff on the ingredients list that you can't pronounce and don't understand, get it out of there. It's not good for you. And fast food. The fast food chains know how to put things into the food that is addictive and bad for you, but tastes good. And so they remove most of the nutritional content and put things in there that is really not healthy. Yes, that includes In-N-Out Burger. I know it's less processed than most and they have less additives than most. It's still not good for you. Sorry, folks. I know there are a lot of Californians out there who just swear by this stuff and it's practically a cult. My kids are members. Hate to give you the bad news. So, exercise and movement. To back up to that other thing again, if you want help with this, a nutritionist can be a really, really good asset. And they can help you design a diet that contains more of these things and is actually sustainable and tastes good and fits your personal preferences. That's what nutritionists are for. So don't be afraid to consult with one. This is worth the investment of time, energy, and money. Even though all these things will increase your food budget in the short term, you'll be spending a lot less money on healthcare later, especially decades later. Investing in healthy eating right now is going to make your life a whole lot better, and it's going to make you function a lot better, and you will feel better, and you will be more productive, you'll be more happy, you'll be more joyful, everything in your life will be better. So, yep, I struggle with this stuff too, especially when I'm stressed out. I go right back to the cookies and crackers and chips and popcorn. I get it, but I'm working on it. Exercise and movement. Again, when we're depressed and stressed out, this is the last thing we want to do. There's just no time, or so we tell ourselves, but it's essential. The more stress we're under, the more we have to move that out. The more emotion we're feeling, the more we have to move. The root word for emotion is from the Latin and Greek, and it just means energy in motion. If we're not moving, that energy is stuck, and that has really bad impacts on our bodies, on our minds, on our emotions, on our relationships, and everything else. Emotion, which includes stress is just energy that's trying to move through our body. It has to move. It has to find a way to be grounded. Just like a lightning strike will hit the highest available object and then try to find a path to ground, stress is energy that's trying to get grounded. If it gets stuck in our bodies, horrible stuff happens. It's like an electrical circuit that has nowhere to discharge the electricity. And it either burns out or it trips the breaker, one or the other. So we have to move that energy. So exercise and movement are the ways that we're designed to do that. If you look at an animal that has just been through very high peak stress, trying to escape from a predator, those of you who are hunters who spend a lot of time around animals or love nature photography like I do, you'll notice that when an animal feels threatened, it runs, and then it stops when it knows that it's away from the immediate danger. It'll look around, scan the environment, and if it doesn't see any danger, it'll shake. And it'll get that excess energy and all those stress chemicals out of its body. That's what the shaking is doing. And then it'll go back to grazing because now it's calm. That's what we're designed to do. But we don't do that as human beings. We're too sophisticated. We think we don't need that. And our brains have the imagination, unfortunately, to be able to envision things that feel real, even though they're just our imagination. We think about something in the future that we're likely to find stressful, what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen when I go into work, or we imagine things in the past, remember stuff that was horrible or stressful or painful, and it's like it's happening all over again because our brain and our limbic system in the center of the brain do not understand the difference between imaginary stress or remembered or anticipated stress and the real thing. Our body responds. It's saying, okay, wait, got to put on the brakes, put on the accelerator pedal, let's go, let's stop, wait, what are we doing here? Where's the threat? I don't understand. We got to move. That's what we're designed to do. So, exercise pumps up our endorphins, the feel-good chemicals, endogenous morphine. This is what helps us feel better and deal with pain. It releases those good chemicals into our body. It reduces our stress impacts. on the cardiovascular, digestive, and immune systems. It also makes those systems more resilient. Just think about what exercise does for your breathing and your blood pressure and your ability to move blood through your body. Your fitness level increases because it's using that healthy stress to become more resilient. It also improves brain health. When we are getting exercise, when we're moving, when we're getting healthy amounts of good stress in our bodies that move bad stress out, our brain is healthier, our emotions are better. It improves our mood and our sleep. It reduces symptoms of depression and anxiety. The best cure for depression and anxiety has nothing to do with Prozac or the other medications. It is healthy diet, exercise, mindfulness, and healthy relationships. Those are the pillars of treating depression and anxiety. Some of the best forms of movement are things that combine mindfulness and body and are able to integrate those things so that we are more in tune with how our body and our emotions are flowing. So yoga has been used by human beings for at least 15,000 years that we can document through cave paintings. There's a reason for that. It's one of the most effective things that humans have ever invented for dealing with stress and integrating body, mind, and spirit. In Chinese traditions, Tai Chi and Qigong are other forms of this that are really effective at slow movement and getting the body and mind and spirit integrated. Meditation and motion is basically what all these things are doing. These are so effective that Bessel van der Kolk, you may know him from The Body Keeps the Score. It's one of the foremost theories on PTSD in the world and runs the Trauma Institute outside of Boston. He now has every person who comes to the Trauma Institute for treatment, which are usually women who have experienced enormous amounts of trauma and abuse. He has them go through 6 weeks of trauma-informed yoga before they ever start therapy or other forms of treatment. Because until they've gone through that yoga program and they're back in their bodies, they are unable to process whatever will come to them through therapy or other forms of treatment. They have to be back in their bodies and feel safe. So yoga, he has said, in a training that I attended with him, he said that yoga is the best medication that we have ever studied for treating trauma. More powerful than anything that ever came out of a laboratory. So take that in stride. Set realistic goals. So you don't want to jump straight from being a couch potato into going to the gym for 2 hours. You're not going to be able to maintain that. At least I can't, and most people I know can't. 10 minutes that you do consistently 5 times a week is better than 30 minutes that you fall off of immediately and don't do anymore after 2 weeks. You have to make it part of your routine. It takes most people about a month or so of consistent application to turn something from a new activity into a habit. So do it consistently, set short, achievable goals, but keep it something that you do regularly. And then just be active in short bursts throughout the day. Get up and stretch, walk, do some squats or push-ups, push against a wall, just move your body. Get up and just turn, twist. Do something that gets your body up and stretching. For those of us who sit at a desk all day, this stretch is incredibly powerful just for getting your body out of that hunched position and waking it up. And it says, oh, thank you so much. I'm so tired of being cramped like that. It can really help to find a buddy to improve your accountability. It also adds in social benefits. I don't know about you, but it's really easy for me to let myself down and not go to the gym when I promise myself I'll do that. I am very bad at following through for myself. But if there's someone else who's relying on me to meet them there, I'm a lot less likely to no-show. Because I'll no-show myself over and over again, but I will not no-show a friend. That's why accountability buddies are so powerful. It also helps to add in some social connection, which is also another form of help. Trainers and physical therapists and other people can really add some oomph to this, and occupational therapists especially are really good at helping you design a sensory system, sensory diet that can help you with movement and energy. Physical therapists are great for helping you design a program that's custom tailored to your mobility issues, if you have any, your health issues, your particular physical makeup. Personal trainers at the gym can also do a lot of that and are also great for motivating you and pumping you up. All those are extra money though. So for those of us who don't have a lot of excess cash to spread around, just finding ways to move, even if it's just putting a YouTube video on in our bedroom and doing some yoga or stretches or whatever we can, has an enormous benefit. Just going for a walk for 15 minutes. Take your dog along, they'll enjoy it. That's why mine is so crazy, because he hasn't been out for a couple hours. Dogs need to move too, a lot more than we do. So then sensory strategies are really essential, especially for people who are neurodivergent, because so much of the experience that we have in life is sensory. We meaning people who are some way or another neurodivergent, including those who have high sensitivities. But even for people who are neurotypical, engaging the senses is one of the ways to really lower stress, get us out of that hamster wheel in our mind where we're just thinking about all the things we have to do and getting more and more stressed out about it. Get back in your body, and the way to do that is through your senses. Mind you, keep in mind that for people who have been through a lot of trauma, sexual abuse, physical abuse, things that involve the body, medical trauma, other things where the body has just not been a safe place, these may have to be approached with some care, and you may have to find sensory strategies that help you feel safe instead of dysregulating you, because you have many of those people have not experienced the body as someplace that is safe to be. So that's a caveat. But finding ways to inhabit your body and be out of that dissociative mode, be engaged safely with the world in ways that feel good, is really essential as a coping mechanism. So there's an exercise called the 5 senses routine, which is really good for this. It's the order can vary depending on who you ask, but the way I teach it is that you look for 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell. Sorry, 3 is still up. 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste, even if it's just the last thing you ate or drank. When you really sit with those things, you're not just glancing around the room saying, okay, find 5 things. No, you're really engaging with it. So I'm looking at a lamp right now, and I'm looking at the color, which is kind of bronze. I'm looking at the texture. It's got this kind of machined metal look to it, probably aluminum. It has these fields of light where the light kind of reflects off it in different patterns, which are really beautiful, and that kind of glows underneath. I'm really looking at it. I'm engaging with that object and paying attention to it in a way that I don't normally do when I just kind of glance past it. So really engage with each of those 5 things. Take 5 to 10 seconds and try to see how much detail you can spot. Then move on to the next thing. And shift your field of vision around. Really look at the things in your environment, so you're not just tunnel visioned on your computer or whatever it is you're looking at. Hearing, even in the quietest room, you can usually hear something, even if it's just the air conditioning. Or right now, I'm hearing one of my sons play upstairs on the piano coming through the floor. You may be able to hear that too, depending on the microphone. I can hear the fan in the computer whirring. Normally, we just screen those things out. There are millions of sensory inputs at any given instant that are available to us, and we have to screen out 99.999% of those just in order to function. Otherwise, it would be overwhelming. Paying attention to some of those things and opening up our perceptual field helps us to be much more present and attuned and in the moment. And this moment right here, right now, is the only moment where you can ever do anything to change what's happening and have an impact. So being in the moment is a key to everything. Eckhart Tolle talks about this as the power of now. Right here, right now is the only moment that is real. Everything else is just our brains playing tricks on us. So breathing is another powerful tool that we can use to get back in the moment. It's always available to us. We are always breathing. We take it for granted so much of the time. Really focus on your breathing. So take deep, slow breaths. One of the things that happens when we're under stress is we start breathing fast and shallow. That's a natural response to these stress chemicals. We're trying to get oxygen pumped into our bodies quickly. When you breathe slowly and deeply, you're signaling your brain from your body that it's safe to breathe slowly, because we can only do that when we're safe. So you're using your body to tell your brain to calm down. You're hacking your body's calming signals. So there are various techniques that you can learn. There's pranayama breathing, which is taught in yoga. There's square breathing, which is taught in schools. So you breathe in for a count of 3 or 4, depending on who you ask. You hold it for 3 or 4. You exhale for 3 or 4. You hold it out for 3 or 4. Keep going around. And yes, drawing the square in the air is part of the method. I'm not just adding that for fun. Moving your hand in this pattern helps to engage your body in the process and integrate movement into this exercise. There's another one, again, a yoga technique that is called 4-7-8 breathing. Breathe in for a count of 4, hold it for a count of 7, exhale slowly to a count of 8. And the belief is that that resets our stress response system so that we are feeling calmer and safer in the body. So those are some techniques to try. Your kids will probably suggest others. A lot of the schools are teaching these things like butterfly breathing, bumblebee breathing. There's all kinds of them now, and they're all good. Ask your kids what they've learned. If they're still in elementary school or remember it well, they may have some things that they've picked up that they can teach you, and they'd be thrilled to do that. Kids love to teach their parents stuff. Helps them feel like experts. You can do a body scan. 2 forms of that. Just quickly start at the top of your head and look for areas of tension in your body. Just notice. You don't have to do anything about it. Just scan down. Take 10 seconds or so, 20, 30, whatever you feel is right. Then start at the bottom and scan back up. And imagine like it's a sensory screen that, like on Star Trek, they're scanning your body from top to bottom. Look for areas of tension. You don't have to do anything about it. Just notice. You're just checking in with your body and seeing what's going on. Another thing you can do is progressive muscle relaxation. So this is clenching and releasing, starting at different parts of your body. You can try this with your face, try it with your eyelids, you can try it even with your ears. I don't know how you move your ears, but you can try just paying attention to those areas that you don't normally focus on. Try to tense and relax this little thing right here. It's got a name, but I forget what it is. This area under your lip, or your chin, or your neck muscles. See how creative you can get. Those areas will really relish the attention you're giving to them. How often do you focus on your little toe? That tiny little toe. It does such important work, and we never pay attention to it. Wiggle it. I'll say thank you. So you can do touch. Massage is wonderful. If I can get in to see a massage therapist, I feel so grateful. They're very busy these days and hard to get into. There's a technique called tapping that you may have seen or heard. It goes down different areas. It is effective for many people. I personally don't find that it helps very much for me, but then I'm a hard head in many ways. A lot of things take a lot more work with me than they do with most people. Some people swear by it. It's called the emotional release technique, I think. I forget the name, but you can look it up, just tapping, and they'll show you a bunch of different ways to try this. And many people swear by it, especially these areas right here in the webby part of your hand. Some people will tap that all day long because it helps to release them. You can massage your earlobes or your eyelids. That's really good. Touch is very powerful. Hugs, deep pressure. Those release the cuddle hormones, oxytocin. Vocalization. This hacks the vagus nerve, which is at the back of the throat, and is responsible for rebalancing our nervous system. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic one is the fight-flight response. The parasympathetic one is the one that's meant to calm us down and get us back in balance. Often when we're stressed out, those systems are out of balance. The sympathetic nervous system is activated, and the parasympathetic nervous system is suppressed. And so we're out of balance, and we can't get that back in. Hacking the vagus nerve, which is the main nerve that is involved in the parasympathetic system, helps us to calm down and get back in balance. So you can sing, you can yell, get your vocal cords going, you just say, ah. There are a lot of techniques for doing that. Ice can also help. Cold on the vagus nerve is a way to get that activated. You can also shock your hands into ice, another way to do it, or your face if you can take that. It's painful, but it actually activates your parasympathetic nervous system and can get you back into balance. It's sort of a shock technique. Heavy work helps. This is pushing things and getting large muscle groups active. Get one of those vacuum cleaners that's not like the little ones that are so light and airy, and they do a good job, but they're not effective for this. Get one of those old heavyweight metal Hoover type things that you have to really work on. Yeah, you're going to get tired if you clean your house with it, but keep one handy, even if you have to go down to Goodwill or the Salvation Army and find one. Doesn't even matter if it works. You're just trying to move something heavy. Carry laundry baskets up and down the stairs, move furniture. In schools, sometimes they'll fill a box with scrap paper and wrap it like it's a delivery package so that it's heavy, not too heavy for a kid, but they'll just wrap it like it's a special delivery. There's nothing important in it. But when a kid is really dysregulated, they'll ask this kid to, they'll just interrupt what they're doing, their meltdown or their freak out, and they'll say, look, I need you to do something for me. Can you help me? I want you to take this to the office. It's really super important. Has to get there right away. Don't run, but I need you to get it there as quickly as you can walking. And I want you to take it to the office manager, the principal, whoever, doesn't matter. And make sure that you bring back a little receipt from them saying that you brought it and took it there. And this kid is usually, it interrupts their whatever's going on. It gives them a job, which feels important. And the most important part is that they're carrying something heavy to them. It doesn't have to be like 3-4 pounds, doesn't matter. But it gives them a job, and they're carrying something that has weight in it. And it's just the act of carrying it and interrupting their cycle that's important. And this works like magic for a lot of kids. So a lot of schools will have this, and they keep it around. Music, rhythm, and sound. A lot of us just will listen to music a great deal. Rhythm is the important part. That especially if it's like 60 to 80 beats per minute, that's the first sound that we hear in utero, our mother's heartbeat. And the natural rhythm is 60 to 80 beats per minute. So a lot of music and a lot of rhythmic things in meditation or sound healing will use that particular rhythm. And when we bounce a basketball or bounce something against a wall, it's often to that beat. You can also use something called binaural sound, which pulses sound back and forth between the ears. It doesn't even matter what the sound is. It could be meditated, it could be music. I sent kids binaural recordings of Minecraft music, which is very soothing. I actually love Minecraft music. But the important part is it's going back and forth between the two ears so fast that it's almost undetectable. And that helps to rebalance the brain. Just go to YouTube or whatever sound cloud, whatever you use, and search for binaural sound recording of whatever you want. Piano music, beach sounds, the ocean, the mountains, meditation, doesn't matter. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes for it to really have an effect, but if you just put it on in the background with those noise canceling headphones on halfway so that you can still hear the outside environment, but you're getting that sound into your system, it helps regulate you. A lot of people who are neurodivergent will do that all day long, especially when they're under stress. Pressure. So this is deep body pressure. This is weighted blankets, it's hugs, it's having your partner squish you. I actually know people who will have their boyfriend or girlfriends lie on top of them and just squish them. Nothing sexual about it at all. It's just the weight, it's the pressure. A body sock can do this. It's just this thing you pull over you that wraps you in this hug. Sometimes teachers and occupational therapists will wrap kids up in a yoga mat, especially the younger ones, really tight, like a burrito, and they'll actually call it making a burrito. They'll roll the kid up in it, and then they'll put the toppings on. Here comes the cheese, here comes the guacamole, and they sort of rub the outside of it. And it's funny, number one, but it also helps to release oxytocin into the body, that cuddle hormone, which is released when our mothers rock us in their arms. It's a very important calming mechanism. You can just pile a bunch of blankets on top of you, or one of those big bean bags, doesn't matter. Just the all over body pressure helps a lot. You can get weighted vests, you can get weighted lap blankets, other things like that. It does matter how heavy it is. It has to be scaled to your body weight. You don't want something that's too light or too heavy. But there are things online that you can use to figure out the proper weight of a weighted blanket and order one for you, or you can make them, although it's complicated. It's beyond my colding skills for sure. But it is possible to make them for a lot less money than what you buy. And then there are vestibular and proprioceptive activities. So the vestibular system is the balance system in our inner ear that helps us keep our balance. The proprioceptive system is the sensory network that helps us know where our body is in space and feel the different parts of our body, our organs. And it's the sense of where we are, where our bodies are. Think about how much volume of air or space your neck holds, and focus on how much space your trunk is occupying. That's your proprioceptive system. Try to feel your liver, try to feel your heart. That's the proprioceptive system. Activating these systems releases calming chemicals into the body that last a lot longer than just regular movement. So you'll find that kids who are sensory and sensitive will do things like get on swing sets for as long as they can. They'll spin. They'll flap their arms. This is often something that people with autism will do, stimming. This is engaging those systems. Spinning in place is a really common one for people who are autistic because it's activating those systems and it calms them down. And they instinctively know this, and they'll seek out those opportunities to engage those things. Riding a bike, or better yet, a balance bike, going on a balance beam, trampolines, even the little miniature ones that you keep in a house, pogo sticks. Before my fellow therapist banned it, I would put my neurodivergent kids on a pogo stick in the playroom at Options and have them bounce around. And even if they fell over, it didn't matter. The important thing was that they were using their balance system and they were bouncing up and down, which is releasing all those things into their body that are so calming. So we'd start out sessions with 5 or 10 minutes of that, and the rest of the therapy session went so much better because they were calm, they were regulated in their body, and they were laughing, they enjoyed it. It just made a lot of noise, so eventually the pogo stick disappeared from the facility. I was very disappointed. Moving in space is what's important there. So those things can really help to keep you regulated. Those are important for adults who are under stress also. And for people who are experiencing autistic burnout or meltdowns or shutdowns, have a lot of ADHD symptoms, your brain is exploding, you can't focus. These are things that can help you get regulated. And what I sometimes will do is have families or clients get out a craft project where you get a set of popsicle sticks and a jar. Mason jar works perfectly well, and whatever kind of decorations you want. Pick one of these, write it on a popsicle stick, one each. Put the popsicle sticks in your jar, which you can decorate to your own personal liking, put your name on it. Each member of the family can have their own. And then when you're upset, you're dysregulated, you're feeling stressed out, your brain is forgetting what works. You go to the sensory jar, you pull out one of those things, and you just do it. And it's a reminder from your calm brain to your upset brain about what to try. And it helps. Plus, it's a fun craft project to do as a family, and it introduces the concept of these things into the family discussion to normalize it and help everybody understand what works for them, because every person is different. Mindfulness and meditation. So mindfulness is basically just training your attention to pay attention to where you are and what you're doing. So the idea is to achieve a state of mental calm and concentration and focus on what is happening right here, right now. So there's 2 parts to it. One is paying attention to the present moment. What are you doing in this instant? So right now I'm talking to you guys on my camera, on my computer. In this moment, I can see the desk in front of me. I can feel my weight in the chair. I can hear my voice. I can hear the things around me. My kids upstairs, my partner, my wife in the next room, dog outside the door because he wants attention now. That's where I am, right here, right now. And then accepting my feelings and sensations without judgment. That's the other important piece of mindfulness. Where are you? What are you feeling? What are you sensing? Just notice. Yes, you're freaked out. Yes, you're stressed, or you're sad, or you're struggling, or something really bad just happened, or you're happy, joyful. Even positive emotions can send us off balance. I don't know if you ever noticed this, but when you take your kids to Disneyland or the Family Fun Center or whatever, They get so excited that they just act like little jerks. Excitement is also dysregulated, almost as much as sadness and stress. So notice and accept your feelings and your sensations without judging them or expecting them to be something other than what they are. Just sit with yourself right here, right now, in this moment. The idea is that where your attention goes, energy flows. If you are paying attention to yourself and your feelings and your body and your needs in the moment, that is where your energy is going. It's self-care. And you're putting your focus on those things. Where you pay attention to with your children determines how they behave. If the only time you pay attention to them is when they're doing things that are annoying or frustrating, that's what you're going to get more of, because you're rewarding them with attention, which is the most powerful reward mechanism we have, the focused attention of an adult, someone you care about. So if you find yourself paying attention to them only when they're being annoying or frustrating or driving you crazy, you're going to get more of that. Try to notice when they're being good. Catch them doing what you want them to do and pay attention to it. You'll get more of that. Change your perspective, change your life. That's Wayne Dyer, 20 or 30 years ago. When you change the way you see things, the things you see change. So just be here now. Each part of that is important. Just be. We're not human doings, we're human beings. Be. Here. Where are you? Don't be in the past, don't be in the future, don't think about tomorrow, don't think about the past. Here, right here. In this moment, right now. It's the only moment when you can change anything. So, practiced over time, meditation and mindfulness influences stress pathways in the brain. They actually change your brain structure. They make the corpus callosum, which is the interconnection between the two hemispheres of the brain, thicker and more densely wired, so that you can exchange information between those two halves of the brain more readily and more fluidly. It changes the activity in the regions associated with attention and emotion regulation. So those of you who struggle with ADHD or have loved ones who do, impulsivity, hyperactive emotions, reactivity, all those things, this is what helps with that more than anything else. It reduces reactivity and it reduces perseveration, that hamster wheel around negative thoughts or unhelpful emotions. It builds the observer capacity that is able to notice what's happening without being carried away by it. And just be the wise observer. That's what meditation is good for. Over time, when you practice it regularly, if it's just 10 or 15 minutes a day, it will build a habit that will change your life. I swear, it really will. It's hard to get started. Do not think that meditation, if you start meditating and your brain goes haywire and you can't focus on clearing your brain for more than a second or two, that there's something wrong with you. That's not. It's a feature. Even the Dalai Lama talks about the monkey mind. He's someone who meditates for hours every day, all of his life, and still talks about the monkey mind and how it tries to take over. As soon as you try to focus on emptying your mind, it just fills up with all kinds of random stuff. That's what's supposed to happen. So don't expect that you're supposed to sit there like a Buddha for half an hour with nothing in your brain. And if you don't, there's something wrong with you. Not true. The monkey mind is what is supposed to happen. You're just trying to notice it without getting swept away by it. So stand on the bank of the river watching the current flow by without diving in and getting caught up in all the branches and rocks that are sweeping down from the flood. That's the idea. Rituals and routines. So if you have children or you've been around children, you may notice that if they're off their routine, things get a lot wilder. They get a week off from school and they're not following their normal routine, and it's really hard to get back into it when they are off vacation, and they're much crankier than they would if they just stayed in school. Sometimes I, as a parent, have wished that vacations were shorter and a lot less regular, because it's really hard to get back into the normal routine and get the kids behaving properly. That's because we are creatures of routine. So what is a routine? They help us stay focused. They help reduce our sense of chaos and unpredictability. Most of us, some people really like novelty and change and really enjoy that. And all of us need a certain amount of novelty in our lives. But chaos and unpredictable things coming at us all the time is really, really stressful. So routines help to keep us oriented in where we are in our lives, in our daily experience. Uncertainty, unpredictability, chaos, or feeling like things are chaotic are significant contributors to stress. Rituals are repeated actions, so routines, that have a meaningful purpose. So we think of rituals as in more of a religious setting, but they are also things like how we have our meals as a family, how we start our day. Do you get up and go make coffee? Do you get up and meditate? How do you start your day? How do you end your day? How do you get ready for bed? If you do it with a sense of meaning, like you get up and you go to the bathroom, and then the first thing you do is you meditate and you set intentions for the day. That's a routine that then becomes a ritual because it has meaning and it's a purpose. It's setting intention, and that helps to reduce stress. Healthy habits are built on the routines that you repeat daily until they're simply part of who you are. I am someone who meditates. I am someone who goes to the gym. I am an athlete. I am a yoga practitioner. It's part of who you are. You don't brush your teeth because it takes effort and you have to think about it. You brush your teeth because that's just what you do. It's part of your daily habit. It would be strange if you didn't do that. So habits are the ones that are so natural to you that you don't have to think about them or remind yourself to do them. When you're working with children, you're a parent or a caregiver, you're a teacher, you're another person who works in schools, you're around kids a lot, routines and rituals are essential to provide structure in a calm, secure environment. I'd add that if you are someone who is neurodivergent or you are around people who are, rituals and routines are also essential. They are the skeleton on which everything else is built. If you take someone who is highly sensitive or they're neurodivergent and you interrupt their routines and their rituals, it will be dysregulating. Any sort of change is really, really hard. Anyone who's a parent of an autistic child can tell you if you take a different route to a destination one time, it will be a problem, and you'll hear about it. Some kids will not go to school if you take a different route, even if the route that you normally take is under construction. They will not be okay with taking a detour. It's really hard. But we're all creatures of habit to some degree or another. So these are the structures that provide a sense of calm and organization to our day. Social connectedness. The United Kingdom, England, Great Britain, Wales, Scotland, did a study that defined isolation as the biggest mental health crisis in their society. Isolation, we are social creatures. In the United States, we think of ourselves as these, cowboy independent, do it alone, completely self-reliant people. It's a lie. We are herd animals by nature, and we are designed to be in relationship with other people. We are wired for it. Our brains, our whole nervous system is wired for connection. If we are isolated from others, or we feel isolated from others, we go into a stress response. Because, if you think about it, when humans were evolving as creatures who were very vulnerable and were among the weakest animals in nature, vulnerable to any predator that came along, our safety was found in community. We were much safer when we were in a tribe or a community than we were, even a family, than we were by ourselves. And certainly think about a baby. We're one of the few creatures on the planet that is born vulnerable, and I think we remain vulnerable for the longest time of any major animal. We cannot take care of ourselves until shockingly late in life. And so we rely on our caregivers to take care of us. So we're wired to respond with stress when we are in isolation from birth, even before birth. When we're in those periods for long periods of time, that's toxic stress. So social isolation and loneliness are some of the most significant health risks that we can face. There are studies that show that social isolation increases the risk of dementia by 50%, heart disease by 29%, and stroke by 32%. So for many, one of the most damaging aspects of COVID and the pandemic and everything that followed it is that our social networks were damaged. Think of social distancing, one of the worst terms ever invented. What we needed was physical distancing. We needed social connection. Very unfortunate phrase. For a lot of us, our social networks were damaged during the pandemic, and many of us haven't had our social networks fully restored since then. So the CDC says that we build social connectedness by small acts of connection that lay the groundwork for building supportive, valued, inclusive, and meaningful relationships. So that's an essential aspect of dealing with stress. Make connections with people, reach out, do things to be connected even in small ways with other people throughout your day or many times during the day as much as you can. So our environment surrounds us and impacts us. Try to make your environment calm. So you don't have to go to an extreme about this. You don't have to be Marie Kondo. Even she realized that a certain amount of chaos, this is a lady from Japan who specializes in organizing and decluttering. Even she realized when she had kids that a certain amount of chaos is normal and even kind of healthy. You don't have to go to extremes, but having your space clean, organized, and decluttered does help to calm the brain. So do some sort of calming, grounding, or mindfulness routines with those around you. That's your social environment. Help to calm the social environment down. Teach the kids around you to do their part to help the household stay structured and safe, calm, organized. On days when your environment is especially bouncy, use your coping and calming routines more. And then figure out what your own major environmental triggers are, what you are most sensitive to, because this varies depending on the person. For me, it's noise. I can't stand a lot of heavy noise. For my wife, it's clutter. If things are just disorganized, she really doesn't like it. I really struggle with a lot of chaotic movement in my environment. I'm also really sensitive to conflict and stress in the people around me and my relationships. Figure out what your most important triggers are and try to find ways to reduce that. And really invest time each day in doing that. Clean a little bit, organize a little bit, find ways to make your environment more suitable to your particular sensitivities. And then spiritual practice and meaning making. So as I mentioned earlier, we can tolerate almost anything and even be elevated and inspired by it instead of traumatized if we feel it has a higher purpose or a profound meaning. Spirituality is not about religion, although it's an element of most religions. Spirituality is simply a sense for purpose, meaning, or a reason for being on earth. It doesn't have to have anything to do with organized religion. It's about finding ways to connect our daily experience with some higher purpose. And that can be really essential as a coping strategy. So studies have shown that having some sort of a spiritual practice reduces stress and increases resilience. Belonging to some sort of a spiritual community, church, mosque, synagogue, meditation group, Dharma circle, whatever it is, can reduce your stress and increase your resilience and help you give you a sense of social connectedness. Reduces your risk of depression, PTSD, substance use, and suicidal ideation pretty dramatically, and can also foster a sense of connection. And let's remember that most of us in the helping professions, which is probably most of you listening to this, including parents and other caregivers, got into the work in the first place, got into those roles out of a sense of higher purpose. We had children for a reason. We became teachers or therapists or nurses or healthcare workers or caregivers because it meant something to us. It was valuable. We believe that there's meaning to our lives if we're doing this stuff. So remember why you started the journey in the first place. We often get so stressed out that we forget that we're doing this for a reason. Reconnect with that reason on a regular basis. So, lastly, reach out for help. There's a limit to how much self-care, which is a word that is thrown around a lot at work, it can do. Know when to ask for help. You can only help yourself to a certain point, and then you go under. So take time for yourself and your most important relationships. Have date nights with yourself. Have date nights with your partner. Getaways, spa days, whatever works for you. Just get out of your regular routine and do something to invest in self-care. Use supports available to you through work. Take PTO. Don't save it up. Call your EAP if you have access to one. Talk to your boss, your supervisor, supportive people, whatever you've got. If you're getting close to burnout, remember that family medical leave and short-term disability exist for a reason. And now in Oregon, there is paid family leave through the state that we are paying into. Use it. You can use it for any reason with some planning. It doesn't have to be something that you can explain to someone else. You can take it for whatever, mental health days. Get professional help before you reach the crisis point. It's a lot harder to deal with burnout after you were burned out than it is to prevent it in the first place. So talk to a therapist or a medical professional. Stress doctors, integrative medicine doctors, those are particularly good people to get help from. And then remember that some stress symptoms such as anxiety, panic attacks, high blood pressure, sleep issues can be treated really well with medication, at least in the short term. So consult with a medical professional and don't be afraid to get help. So that's what I've got. Thank you for paying attention. I'm going to go pick up my youngest from soccer. Timing is really good, and I really appreciate the time that you've taken to listen to this presentation. It's about an hour and 45 minutes out of your life that will be, I think, invested in useful things, and will make all the difference for you and for the people that you care about, and the people that you try to help. So remember the oxygen mask rule. Put on your own oxygen mask before you put that on others, because if you go down, everyone who relies on you goes down. You have to take care of yourself first. So take care. Thank you very much.